Hi, and welcome to Unit 6. We're going to begin talking about a case study that we're going to follow through the remainder of the course when we're talking about new things in iOS that we're learning. And we're going to create a parts room application for the iPhone. Now, the idea is, or what a parts room application is in its highest level specification, is this. When we have a manufacturing concern or an asset management concern, there are assemblies and there are parts. We have a need to manage parts and those assemblies. So the idea is we have two basic kinds of user. We have a parts room clerk or clerks that manage that parts inventory of the parts room, and we also have a manufacturer, a person on a manufacturing assembly line that puts those parts together into assemblies. So the clerk should be able to fully manage the inventory of the parts room via a handheld device, such as an iPhone. And in this case, we're going to implement this for iPhone, so that's good. They should be able to add and delete parts from inventory. They should be able to send orders for parts to vendors when that inventory becomes low. They should be able to view current on-hand inventory in a couple of ways. Just a listing of parts and a listing of bins, let's say, locations where those parts are. They should be able to set reorder levels individually for each part. And what that means is when a part gets low, we should get some kind of alert within the application that part is becoming low, and we should be able to set the level that alert pops up for each part and for each assembly individually. We should be able to group parts into assemblies for the manufacturing line, and we should be able to assign a new part number to each assembly. So an assembly in that sense is really just another part. We should be able to send orders for assemblies to the manufacturing line. So the parts room clerk should be able to send an order to make an assembly from a group of parts to the manufacturing line. And then the manufacturing line workers should be able to use the same application to place orders to the parts room to produce the assemblies. So let's think about the model, because the first thing we want to do when we look at an application is specify what its data is, what the application is going to be working on. So the model for this application consists of three basic ideas. It consists of a part in some shape or form, an assembly of parts, and an inventory. And the inventory specifies all the parts and all the assemblies and where they are and how many there are of each. Since an assembly is a grouping of parts with its own part number and description and reorder information and vendor and location, it is a part. And whenever we have the word is-a, that idea of is-a, then we're really talking about a subclass of part. So an assembly we can specify in our model as being a subclass of class part. An inventory is a listing of all the parts and where they currently are. The location is a bin number. So let's talk about this bin number. For parts, the bin number could refer to a physical bin, in other words, a shelf and a box in the parts room, or it could refer to the assembly station the part has been assigned to if it's going to be made part of an assembly. For assemblies, the bin number is either going to refer to that assembly station for any assembly that's just been completed, or it could refer to a warehouse location where we're warehousing assemblies prior to them being sold, or we could just say they're sold. They're in the sold bin, meaning they're no longer on the campus. We should be able to break down assemblies for parts. Let's say we have 50 of these assemblies in the warehouse, and we no longer are selling that assembly, or we need to recapture some parts that are already in those assemblies, and we should be able to break those down for parts and then restock the parts room from the assemblies. In the two demos that follow this discussion, we're going to be implementing two workflows in Demo 1 and Demo 2. So let's look at those. Now for workflows, I have a very simple kind of diagrammatic picture of what a workflow is. Below the line, below that horizontal white line, I'm going to have all the user interactions with the application. And above the line, I'm going to have the application itself. And arrows, when they cross the line, are what the user tells the application to do, and then the application reporting back to the user in some fashion. So to add a new part, the user needs to specify the number of the part, the name of the part, a description of the part, a bin number, which is the location, a quantity, an initial quantity of the part, and a reorder level. In other words, how many of that part will trigger an alert to the parts room person that says, hey, your order is getting low, we better reorder from the vendor. So once the user specifies that information, the application goes out and creates the part and adds it to inventory in the proper location. And then the application reports back to the user, okay, you added part number so-and-so, and that's our new part workflow, probably the simplest workflow that we're going to have in the entire application. The next workflow is the idea of deleting a part, and really we're deleting a part from inventory. So we're not going to keep an infinite number, let's say, of parts as objects in our application because we'd very rapidly use up memory. So the idea here is just to delete a part from the usable pool of parts. In other words, we're no longer going to use any of this type of part. Therefore, we can delete it from the system. We can remove the marker from inventory. So we need to specify in some way, perhaps in a selection of ways, the part number to delete. So the user would specify that to the application. The application is going to catalog that part number and look at it, and then it's going to ask the user, are you sure? Do you really want to do this? If you delete this part, then we can't use it in assemblies anymore. Are you really sure we want to do this? If the user says no, then we just go to an okay state. In other words, the user says no, the process is over, and we're done. If the user says yes, then the application will delete the part from inventory and then report back to the user that such and such part has been deleted. So these are the two workflows that we're going to implement first. And what this will do is give us a good idea of the model and give us a couple of tests against that model to make sure everything is working before we go on and start implementing the application as a whole. Thank you.